It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra is giving you the chance to win tickets to the NBA Finals. That's right, the 2025 NBA Finals. Just head to MichelobUltra.com/NBA Finals. Michelob Ultra courtside NBA Finals sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents, excluding Maryland residents. 21 up. Begins at 9 a.m. EST on February 16, 2025. Ends on May 5th, 2025. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/rules for price and details. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today, for like the fourth or fifth week in a row, I've lost count now, we have a guest. This is the new Infinite Rabbit Hole, where we don't highlight our voices, but we make you listen to us first. I'm Jeremy. I'm your host, yet again. And I am joined by my co-host, Jake, and pissed off jackalope face Jeff. That's right. There's an inside joke there. Maybe I'll show you guys later. Maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see. Pissed off Jeffrey, how are you doing?
Well, I'm not pissed off.
Look at you all mad.
Not mad. I'm chilling. Pretty good.
Look how angry you are. You're so angry.
Hanging out. Went fishing today. Medicated myself in various ways. So I'm good. Chilling. I got some horchata tea here.
Ooh.
Pretty good. Ask me about chemtrails. Gotcha.
Horchata is the bee's boobs.
Did I ever show you my Bigfoot coffee mug?
That's cool. I like that.
How cool is that? Come on, man.
Pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
Right? Bigfoot. I mean, that's the derpiest Bigfoot I've ever seen, but
Show him the mug that I got you.
Which one?
The Bigfoot mug.
Which one?
Here we go. Show and tell.
It's in there.
I don't know which one you got me.
It's the one that's an actual foot.
Oh, the foot one. It's the foot. Look at him. Look at that. It's a
Look at
foot.
that foot.
Look at that foot.
Yeah.
If I saw that print in the wild, I'd be like, that's a Bigfoot. All right. Jake, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Did a lot of stuff today. I went an hour away to go pick up a fuel oil tank so I could turn it into an evaporator. An evaporator.
There you go.
For syrup season, because we have entered it where the nights are below freezing and the days are above freezing. So I'm going to be tapping some trees tomorrow and welding up this evaporator, and it should be much bigger than the one I had. I mean, it is much bigger than the one I had last year, but yeah. So I'm pretty stoked, and I might go fishing for a little bit, but yeah, remains to be seen. It depends on how busy I am, but yeah, doing good. Been fighting with vegans, so that's been cool. And here I am.
Nice. before we move on to our guests, I want to say thank you to Tokosies for the follow. Very much appreciated. I think we're only like 5 followers away from being able to. What's that that mark we're trying to hit?
Affiliate.
Jeff? Affiliate.
Twitch affiliate. Yeah.
We're pretty close to that.
We're almost
So
there.
big stuff there. Thank you very much.
Almost
Thank
there.
you.
Share the show with your friends so we can break it tonight.
There you go.
Make it
Thanks,
tonight.
Tokosies. All right. Without further ado, let's introduce our guest for the night. Barnaby Jones is a prominent cryptozoologist and paranormal researcher based in Wisconsin, known for founding the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Society, better known as CAPS, and hosting shows like Monsters on the Edge and the Paranormal Spectrum, which I was a guest on, by the way, on the Untold Radio Network. His expertise has been showcased in various media outlets, including American Paranormal Magazine and My Haunted Hometown on T+E Network. Along with numerous podcasts, Jones and his team primarily investigate Wisconsin, but have also ventured across the United States, exploring a wide range of locations such as haunted sites and remote forests to uncover elusive creatures and spirits. Barnaby Jones, welcome to the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
It's a blast to be here, man. Glad to be here tonight.
It's been a while since we talked, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked. I think it was right before UFO days last year. So it's been about 9 months, 8 or 9 months, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Been a while.
Yeah. No, it's we actually I think it was when we set up at UFO days. The very first day was a pretty slow day. It was everyone was kind of just getting ready, and then they did that frisbee toss. But we had one person that came up and said that they listened to your show and saw me on the show.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Instant payoff. So thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Glad to hear it.
So, how did you get started in all this? How did Barnaby Jones get into the world of cryptids, anomalies, and paranormal?
I've always been interested in it my whole life. I never realized that Bigfoot was, is all over the U.S. like it is. I was very, I focused more on the paranormal because I knew that was everywhere. But my love was cryptids. I don't travel around the world and stuff, so I never thought that I'd get involved in it as much as I have. But the more I've dug into it, the more I realized that this stuff is all around us. Every state has cryptids. From Wisconsin right here, we have the Dogman and Bigfoot. We have, according to Chad Lewis, over 50-some lakes in the state of Wisconsin that have lake monsters in them. And of course, we have the random visits from the Lake Michigan Mothman creature. So whatever that happens to be. So we have quite a wide variety of weird creatures here in Wisconsin. And I had my first experience down in Burlington, Wisconsin. And we went down there because it's this nexus of all kinds of weird, crazy phenomenon, from UFOs to paranormal to Bigfoot. And so we decided to go down there one night when I had nothing better to do with my paranormal researcher friend. And we had our first Bigfoot encounter where this thing kind of came through the woods towards the parking lot where we were parked in. And as I shined my light along the ridge, it popped back from the tree line. It had been like leaning down this branch looking out at us, I believe. And as soon as I hit it with the light, it ducked back in. A week later, we went back down there with a bunch of people and ended up finding footprints. We got growled at. We heard whistles. We had a whole bunch of Bigfoot type activity there. And we spent the next couple months going down there almost every weekend researching, and it's snowballed into what you see now. We traveled all over the United States. I speak at conventions all over the U.S. I do library presentations. I host the 2 podcasts, and we've been to some very weird places and seen a lot of weird things. So we're open to whatever you want to talk about tonight.
Man, that's awesome. That's wild stuff, man. So how did you get a convention going? So you have your own event, right?
Yeah. So we started in before I started CAPS, we went up to the Hayden Adventure, which is this 80-acre private property in Upper Michigan that was featured on Finding Bigfoot. After a series of 3 game camera photos were captured on the property, the middle one may contain what some believe is a Bigfoot. And ever since it aired on Finding Bigfoot, people wanted to see the property and see the evidence. So Craig Salk and his wife Barb Salk opened up the property as like a touristy location for people to come see the evidence and hear the stories. And in 2019, myself and my mom went up there and met Craig and Barb and got to tour the property. And this is when I realized that, you know, these creatures are in Wisconsin, they're in Upper Michigan, there's Bigfoot all over the United States. So that led me down to researching Linda Godfrey, The Beast of Bray Road, Mary Sutherland, and eventually Linda Godfrey, Mary Sutherland, which led me to Burlington Woods and the whole thing down there. So in 2020, we got the opportunity to go up and research at the Hayden Adventure on that property. And we got to spend like every weekend up there with Craig and Barb and, you know, just dig into this whole phenomenon. Well, in October of 2020, Craig was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and he ended up passing away the following April. And they had been running this convention up there for 3 years at that time before COVID hit, and they had to take a break off. Well, then the following year, Craig passed away, so they ended up taking another year off from this convention, and they weren't sure if they wanted to run a convention or not. And so my team stepped up and we said, well, we'll help you run this. So we picked up the reins and started helping run the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention. Well, we did that for 3 years, and this thing just absolutely outgrew Marinette Menominee. And they wanted to keep their convention local, and we still wanted to do this big event because we were incorporating everything from Bigfoot hikes to paranormal investigations and all this other stuff, but they wanted to keep it local. So we kind of branched off, and it just so happened that this past year was also the last year of MI Paracon in Upper Michigan. So now you have this huge gap for conventions in our area. You know, the largest one in our area, MI Paracon, pretty much closed up. So now there's this lack of any major event here. So we thought, okay, well, we're going to start out with this smaller event, which is the Wisconsin Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention in Appleton. It's coming up here May 9th through the 11th. And we kind of thought, you know, well, we gave it a brand new name, we gave it a brand new location, and, you know, it's going to take it a year or two to roll. And we've been absolutely floored by the amount of people interested in this that we have limited tickets available for this event because we just don't have seating for everyone. With the NFL draft in the end of April in Green Bay, Wisconsin, all the venues are booked out a month either side of that in this area for just all the people coming into town for the event, everything that's going on, the setup and then the tear down. So we were very limited as to where we could hold this event. So we picked one of the only locations that we could actually get to. And that's how we got this started. So we're hoping to build it and make it bigger and better every year. But this is going to be our first one. So we also have virtual tickets for anybody that can't make it out in person. You can actually live stream all of our speakers. And even we're premiering our brand new documentary at this event as well, which is The Hairy Man of Dairyland, Wisconsin's Bigfoot. And it's focusing on showcasing just everything about Bigfoot in Wisconsin, from the evidence, the witnesses, and the people that are out there searching for this creature. So you get all aspects of this, including like some of the family life of the people involved. There's reenactments of some of the sightings and stuff. So it's this whole encompassing documentary that we're premiering. And with the virtual ticket, you'll also get a chance to watch that. You'll get a link for that as well. So,
man, that's awesome.
So you said that you got into this because you realized that Bigfoot was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That seems weird to me. I mean, have you ever had like a Bigfoot experience? Because some people will say, you know, Bigfoot is everywhere and stuff like that. And they're just like, okay, you know, a bunch of crazies all over the place, right? Like Jeremy has his own experience. I have my own experience. Can you share with us your experience if you have one?
Well, yeah. He just told us about one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, You know,
I was
so
gonna say,
pay
well, I
attention.
told you I had my first experience was down in Burlington, Wisconsin, where we had the one that I believe was peeking out of the woods and holding the branch down. I hit it with the light; it ducked back in. That was my first encounter with what I believe would be a Bigfoot. After that, we went back down there and we actually found the footprints in that area. We had a huge branch ripped off a tree. We got 2 of these creatures on thermal image that night. We were growled at. We had all kinds of experiences there. My next set of experiences was up in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, when we were following up on some encounter
Nice.
up there. There was a series of howls recorded in March of 2020. And we were
Very
up there
cool.
investigating. We actually found a couple old, there was one trackway that led along this side of a path that the original witnesses had documented one of the footprints. They took a cast of it, and we were actually able to find a few more of the prints in this series as well. And then we also found some possibly melted out footprints over in the snow in the Humboldt Wildlife Area across the river from where the witnesses were. And in the course of researching there, we were doing a night stakeout, and we had 3 of these creatures come down on the opposite shore of the Pelican River there and throw rocks across the river at us. And I got one of those on thermal on the opposite shore as well, where you can actually see its arm go backwards, forwards, and then you hear the splash. So we got that on camera. That was the day pretty much when I realized that this is legitimate. You know, like you said, you know, like footprints are one thing, you know, I don't know what that is, you know, and some of this other anecdotal evidence and stuff. But when you have these creatures throwing rocks, we determined they're about the size of our fist based on how loud the splashes were, how big the rocks were hitting the water.
Mm-hmm.
So anything smaller would make a smaller splash, etc. And we kind of figured that out. They were also getting these rocks over halfway across the river towards us. One of the original witnesses was over 6 feet tall, and he was lobbing these rocks as hard as he could, and he couldn't even get them halfway across the river. So this thing is throwing massive rocks.
They're trebucheting those things. Yeah. Absolutely.
So then the next day, we went over there in the morning on the other side of the river, and we actually found 3 distinct size footprints on that shore.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's cool.
It's funny because when Jeremy and I started this podcast, he had told me his Bigfoot experience, and he will tell everyone that I told him he was full of crap.
It's true.
Or full of shit. And
100%.
I don't recall ever saying that, but it sounds like something I'd say, maybe. But gosh, it must have been 4 years ago now.
5 years now.
5 years ago now. I went camping with my brother and all of his friends up in Dinky Creek, California, which
Dinky Creek would have been 4, yeah, sorry.
At the time, the California wildfires had burned everything up to Dinky Creek and Shaver Lake and above. And it was pretty bad. So like when we were out plink shooting with my 30-30, we had a massive buck come rolling up on us because he hadn't had any hunting pressure for years because there was COVID. So they shut down all of the national park sort of stuff. And then there was the wildfires, and then the wildfires, and then the COVID and the wildfires. And he just walked up on us like, "Oh, hey guys, what's up?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's, that's a 10 by 10. That's huge, type stuff." But he just rolled out. But while we were there, it wasn't like, a campsite sort of setup. It was where you can fit, you get that spot, and the next person gets the next spot, wherever it's flat or wherever you could, put a campsite. And so we had this one spot. It was overlooking a really nice valley, and we saw, or at least one of the guys saw a mountain lion howling at one point, and he's like, "Gosh, I hope it doesn't come over here," right? Because it's all yowling out there in the brush. But the first night, everyone there had some sort of like, yeah, I guess Bigfoot could be real type stuff. And I had been on this podcast for a couple of years. And I was like, "Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll pull up my, 30-30 and blow a hole through its chest type stuff." Right. But we had another party that was probably half a mile from us up the hill. And oh my gosh, you could hear them clear as day, hooting and hollering. You could see the light from the bonfire. They're drunk as a skunk, they're screaming, and they're all this sort of stuff. and we hear this guttural yell that's unlike anything I've ever heard in my life, and everyone shuts up. They shut up. We shut up. I can't even breathe. And it's like through the woods and stuff like that. And we hear all the tree knockings, 1, 2, 3s over here, 1, 2, 3s over there. And I'm like, I swear I went 20 minutes without breathing. And all this game I talk, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll do whatever. And I'm just like, I'm going to die right now. Right. And then the next day, because it was Northern California, it's super dry, all the trees, it's pretty much just a tinderbox waiting to go up. But we had a lot of kids there because my brother, he's older, he's in his 40s, and all of his friends are in their 40s. And so they got a bunch of kids and stuff. So they're all kicking up all this dirt in the middle of the campsite. But behind my tent, I found like a 16-inch footprint, like a bare footprint. And I sent a picture when we got down into cell phone signal into Shaver Lake. I sent Jeremy a picture, and I was like, this is crazy. It was right behind my tent. It was deep impression inside the pine needles and the dirt. And I was like, I don't know where it goes from there because it goes into rocks. And then behind that, it's all where the kids are kicking up all the dirt, and it's all a bunch of little kid footprints, right? So it was interesting enough. And Jeremy got me a plastic cast bucket, which I still have. So he's like, the next time you go camping, you see something weird, make a cast of it. Until years later, I was actually, Jeremy was already living here in Wisconsin. I was getting out of the Navy last year, actually, and I was driving cross country. And when I was going through Oklahoma, it's 2 lanes of traffic. It's just, going this way, and then there's a barrier, and then everyone's going this way. But we're going 2 lanes of traffic. It's me and a bunch of semi trucks. I'm pulling a 24-foot, trailer. My wife got there earlier. I bought the house. She got in it, all the necessities, everything. I'm just, finishing up my time up in the Navy. But I'm going through Oklahoma, and it's beautiful. Like all the places I went through from California to Wisconsin, just gorgeous, right? I pretty much went on the 66 or Route 66, which is the 40 now, I think, all the way through, and then got right up underneath Wisconsin and went straight up. And so I'm going through all this land, I'm looking and stuff like that, and I see this thing in this cow pasture that is hauling ass, and it's big. And it's just like an Olympic sprinter just hauling, and it's huge. And I'm like looking, and there's semi trucks that are merging, getting in all these different ways. And I'm looking, and I'm seeing all this stuff. And I'm looking, for like, maybe 20 seconds. And then after I'm done, I hit up Jeremy, and I'm like, dude, I just saw something that I have no idea what it is. And he's like, all right, so what'd you see? I was like, it looked like a guy in a ghillie suit that was like 8 feet tall doing a straight on dead sprint across a field or like a cow pasture. And so we talked about it for a little bit. And Oklahoma is a huge area for sightings, right? So they go from one tree line to another tree line. They break through the tree lines, and they just haul through these tree lines, and they get to the next one, and then they chill out. And crop dusters and all these people, they're always seeing these sorts of things, right? And so I tell him, I'm just like, yeah, this is what I saw. And so we kind of deduce it down. I was like, so barring an 8 foot tall Olympic sprinter in a ghillie suit, it was a Sasquatch, right? So it was crazy. So even going from the start of this podcast, where I'm just like, I have no experience, I've been out in the woods a lot, but maybe in not the right moments or not the right locations or whatever it is, to actually having some kind of experience, not nearly what Jeremy has had, but has gotten me into the realm of like, me as a Christian person, I'm like, all right, so God created a Bigfoot. We know that Gigantopithecus existed at some point, and we know that people and animals traveled through the ice bridges to the North America from Asia. So maybe that's what happened. And because the food sources and limited resources and all that sort of stuff, they're smaller than they used to be, type stuff, like the sloths that were the size of minivans or whatever, right? So that's kind of where I play it as. But I would love to have an experience like Jeremy. I don't know if he's shared it with you yet, but it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I love it when people are big into a cryptid or a topic, not because it's just something interesting to talk to and or talk about, and there's a lot of reaction from it, and they can get a lot of press from it, or a lot of views or clicks or whatever it is, or monetization from it, but rather because they've had an experience that kind of open up their eyes to be like, yeah, I think there might be something here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, unfortunately I haven't seen one aside from through thermal. I've had a lot of audio experiences where I've been growled at and stuff from very close proximity by something that I couldn't see. And I've been out there to, very close to these things. My mom has actually seen one twice. Once in Upper Michigan and then once down in Kentucky. And I was there both of those times. One, I was for the Upper Michigan one, I was in a different part of the woods at the time. And then in Kentucky, I was pretty much just standing right next to her when it happened, but I was digging in the back of the car. So missed it both times.
Yeah,
Nice.
freaking everywhere, man. It's
I would
awesome.
love to even see one on thermal. I mean, me and my wife, we have game trail cameras. We have 8 wooded acres, and it's pretty popular for deer, raccoons, squirrels, all the various animals. Jeremy has a buddy that got a wolf on a game trail camera on the fields over here in Wisconsin. But we had an incident where the deer don't usually mess with the game trail cameras. They might snoot at them. You'll see a nose every once in a while. It's kind of funny. We'll save those videos and stuff. But we had our camera grabbed and shifted over away from the bait pile. We were baiting just to see what was on the property or what was here when we first moved here. So we were throwing out apples out there and corn and peanuts and things like that just to see, what sort of animals can we expect. We're from California. So it's like, what's around here, right? What do we got to worry about and everything. But yeah, it was weird. It was like there was nothing that was physically on top of the lens of the camera, but the whole camera, it's like it got picked up and just shifted over, so we couldn't even see the pile anymore. And we were like, that's weird. Because the deer will come over and sniff at it and all that sort of stuff. The raccoons, they don't care. Nothing else cares. We've had bears on our cameras before, and they're just going after whatever food we have on the ground, and they're just rolling out when they're done. But that was the weird thing. And it's like, okay, that's kind of strange. And then Jeremy and I, his mom lives on a 40-acre property not far from us. And we went over there and we recorded probably an hour worth of stuff on my phone of it was like saplings that were bent in half and held down by stuff, and big old branches like way up there that were not like, a dead branch kind of shears off and just falls, but like ripped off. So you could see all the, everything coming off of the trunk and everything.
We saw straight trees with like roots up in the air. Like,
yeah,
it was just upside down. It was
right
pretty
next
intense
to
stuff.
Where his mom lives. They have some apple trees. I'm sure someone planted 30 years ago. They look pretty gnarled, but I mean, you could see all the deer scat and everything around there. But I mean, looking at food sources and stuff. So I mean, I'm sure there are things out here, especially, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, all these places. There's a lot of rural area where, if it's not owned by someone, it's public land or whatever. But there's so much of that where it's not fields, it's not neighborhoods, it's not cities, right, where things could hide, things could survive and exist, and people really wouldn't have any idea except for if they saw them personally, or they had some cameras up that were able to trick the big feet. And you talk to some Bigfoot or Sasquatch sort of researchers, they might say, hey, they might be able to see in IR, unlike us. So they could see the lights on those cameras and just shift them to the side when they're coming around a tree, just kind of turn them around so they can't see them, if they're that smart or that intelligent, which is crazy to me.
Take me out to the ball game.
What are you doing?
Did you know DirecTV has the most MLB games?
So, you're singing.
Yeah, they put your favorite teams front and center right when you turn it on. Buy me some cold cuts and flapjacks.
Those aren't even the words.
I'm allergic to peanuts.
Stream DirecTV, home of the most MLB games. Visit directtv.com. Claim based on total games offered on national and regional sports networks. RSNs available with choice package or higher. Availability of RSNs varies by zip code and package.
I'm Dr. Jen Ashton, your host for Season 2 of The Visibility Gap, a podcast presented by Cigna Healthcare. Throughout this season, we'll be tackling something vital, the women's health gap. We'll hear from real people and experts as we unpack important topics like maternal health, menopause, and heart disease. Listen in and download the new season wherever you get your podcasts.
Shopping is hard, right? But there's a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And she sends just for me pieces. Plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what I love and send back the rest. It's so easy. Personal styling for everyone. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
Yeah, we've had a couple experiences like that. We've actually switched in when we were doing the research up at the Hayden Adventure. We actually switched from triggered trail cameras to time lapse. So instead of waiting for something to walk in front of the camera, we just have the camera take a picture every 5 minutes, because you get about the same odds of what are the odds that a Bigfoot is going to walk in front of your camera and trigger that camera. Very slim. Right. I mean, at one point we had over 20 some cameras on the Hayden Adventure property, and obviously we were getting some pictures from Hayden, but all the pictures that we got of potentially Bigfoot at Hayden, none of them were triggered by the Bigfoot. The original picture on the property was triggered by a deer back in 2012 that was sniffing the stump. And this creature was just happened to be in the background of the picture. Craig also got another picture of one of these things that was standing there, but it was again farther away from the camera. That something else, a bird or a deer running past, had to trigger it.
Right.
So we've set up multiple different scenarios on the property. We've created entire perimeters so that one section of the property, nothing could enter or leave that area of the property without setting off one of these things or crossing a camera line. And at one point we actually did get one of these creatures on our time-lapse picture. So we had a thermal imaging video camera set up, aimed at the very back of the property where we think these things were coming on and like watching us. And so what we started doing is we would have two people sit at base camp, which is kind of the middle of this big open field area, and they would just sit there, listen, no lights, no nothing. And then the second group, which would be myself and usually one of our other team members or something, would walk to the back of the property and sit back there until we felt like something was there. We get this, weird feeling of being watched or something, right? Like, okay, they're here, they're interested in us. So then we walk back past base camp, around the property, all the way out to the main road, and then back to base camp. And the goal of this is to get whatever was back there that was watching us to follow us past base camp, and then base camp would have these interactions. So this actually worked on several occurrences, and this is how my mom actually saw one on the property as it came up to the base camp area when she saw it. So this particular night, we went and sat back in the weird area of the property until we felt like we had three of these things actually moving around us. And we stood up and we walked out. Well, we walked past base camp. We got a little bit past base camp, at which point Craig and my mom were sitting there. And Craig heard one of these creatures running through the woods, bipedal, thump, 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 breaking branches and stuff past base camp. He jumped out of his chair, spun around on the ground, and started looking over there because he literally thought this thing was going to come barreling out of the woods at him. So we're already out to the main road stuff. We come back. Well, we went back and checked our cameras and that, and we had that thermal video back there. What we caught was what looks like one of these things, army crawls across the woods down there on thermal. And it's like trying to duck under the camera bypass
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And then what happens is when it stands up past the camera, the trail camera that we had back there out in the little opening snapped a picture of it. So it just so happened that every 5 minutes snapped that one picture, and it looks like the typical like Patterson Gimlin film with the one arm back, one leg
Sure,
forward,
yeah.
kinda. You know, I can't tell you which way it was facing. It's literally just this black silhouette about 6'6" tall, standing against the tree line. But it stands when you're flipping through all these like thousands of pictures that it took.
Yeah.
This one picture just stands out where there's this black spot in it. And you're like, what the heck is that? And you zoom in and it's the clear silhouette of this humanoid figure. And so within 10 minutes of the thermal video to the trail camera picture being taken, so whatever this creature was probably the same creature. Now, you know, obviously the thermal doesn't have a timestamp on it, so I know exactly when it was. But based on when we were back there and the timestamps that we can figure, it was within 10 minutes of each other that the two pieces were captured. And then we have the audio of this thing running through the woods next to base camp. So it's not that you have, you know, one piece of evidence that's going to prove that these things exist or not. It's when you have all these things that layer on top of each other and you can stack that evidence and go, okay, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, and that's not a deer, you know?
Right. I mean,
Is there
that's
somewhere I can see the thermal footage right now?
It is on our YouTube channel. It would be That's a Hot One, and it is the Finding Hayden Season 1.
Jeff?
I'm going to try.
That's the problem with, gosh, all these, the evidence you have through photography, through videography, through hair samples of things that were people submitted to colleges, and they're like, oh, this isn't anything that's known, and everyone kind of just like blows it off like, oh, whatever. You know, we're going to have to recover a body. It's not going to be through video. It's not going to be through photograph. It's not going to be through hair samples or through footprints or whatever it is. You know, it's going to have to be through a body. And with as limited numbers as they are, I mean, gosh, you might as well find, I don't know, what is it, a black rhino and just shoot it in the face and be like, here it is, you know, and that just definitely decrease the population of the species. You know, it's very unfortunate. But there is an extreme amount of evidence out there, and it's, you know, I'm glad that there's people out there that are at least doing, gosh, I don't want to say it, but like, you know, you get to like the Finding Bigfoot sort of like researchers and stuff, and they're out there making calls and hooting and hollering and all this sort of stuff. Oh, didn't find anything. You know, it's like, oh, well, maybe you should shut up and just, you know, wait, you know, hang out for a little bit. You know, I like to hear that there's actually some research going on where people are just kind of, you know, put up the cameras, whatever it takes, you know, and just kind of seeing what happens. Have you guys looked into not necessarily baiting, but gift giving? Because we've heard that on this show a lot, that if you give gifts, they sometimes give gifts back, right?
Peanut butter.
We've done a lot of
Apples,
different things.
peanut butter, fruit, of different things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had several different gifting sites. We've actually lost a Hot Wheels car recently out there that it had been there for years and years and years. And we obviously, you know, we took metal detector and stuff and went around to look for this thing and can't find it. We did the peanut butter jars originally. We've done all kinds of different things out there as far as just looking for these things. Like I said, it's all anybody that's interested. We have a whole book. It's 10 years of research. It's co-authored by myself. Yep. Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Find Bigfoot is Hiding. It is available on Amazon or our website. And then, like,
Barnaby, you got a book?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm buying it right now.
Shameless plug.
Yep. And so here's the link is in the comment section there for the episode that I was talking about.
Awesome.
But we have the whole series Finding Hayden on our YouTube channel that is literally all 30-minute episodes that document different aspects of things that we've done up there. So we hung peanut butter jars up on this teepee structure. And the first one that we did, we hung the peanut butter jar up there. And while I was hanging it, we used paracord, right? So it couldn't get cut, couldn't rip down or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, while I'm stringing this up from the neighbor's property, we hear whoop.
Yeah.
Whoop,
The hoots.
and I'm like, oh man. So I get a little distracted by this, and we sent a guy back to base camp to get audio recorders, ran out there. We actually recorded this. And so what I ended up doing was I tied a loop around the top lip of the peanut butter jar. So it was just kind of like noosed up there. Sure. So 1 month later, we came back. The peanut butter jar is completely gone. Just the noose is hanging there. Okay. So maybe an animal took it, maybe a bear, whatever. But the jar is gone. Like, it is nowhere in the vicinity of the teepee structure or anything. So we're like, okay, we're going to hang another jar. So this time we punched a hole in the lip of the jar. We strung the paracord through this, and we tied it off that way. So it's not going to slip out. It's going to hang there. It's, paracord, nice, tight, strong cord. And about a month goes by again, and we come back up there to check it. Gone again. Completely gone. The entire jar. No remnants of it. No laying anywhere near it. We searched the whole area on the ground. The grasses, everything. It's not there. And here's the thing is we do have trail cameras on the time. The first time we had one trail camera set up on it, and in one picture, the peanut butter jar is there. The next one, it's gone. Don't know what happened. The second time, we had a video and a still picture trail camera up on this peanut butter jar. Both of them, same thing. 1 minute or one video picture, it's there. The next minute, it's gone. So the third time, we said, okay, I went online and I ordered like those air tags, so that you can track this thing.
Yeah.
So I electrical taped the crap out of this tag onto the peanut butter jar, and it was not coming off there. Again, strung it up onto the teepee, and this time we got a series of pictures and videos of squirrels coming and eating the entire jar. And the jar is still there.
Nothing else. Yeah, sure.
That's hilarious.
Now, here's the anecdotal part of that, though, is, okay, so we know that the squirrels in, a couple weeks can empty an entire jar of peanut butter. Okay?
Sure.
So we know that these squirrels did it. So maybe they did it to the first two. Well, the problem with that is we didn't move the trail cameras. If these squirrels had emptied the first two jars, we would have got them on camera.
Yeah.
I mean, that's logic. That's science. It's a repeatable thing.
Yeah.
We have, there's got to be like 30, 40 pictures of these squirrels, plus the videos and stuff. There's tons of documentation of what happened to the third jar. It's very clear. It's not like, one picture of the squirrel doing it that we just happened to capture. No, we have tons of evidence of the third one being emptied. So why don't we have that for the first two?
It's almost like the Sasquatch can sense in some ways, which I'm sure many animals can, sense the electromagnetic waves coming from the air tag, right?
Well,
and they're like, I don't want to get there. Maybe it makes them nauseous. Maybe they can just sense it like, maybe they're smart enough to be like, nope, not going to do it. Without getting too far into your research locations, because I don't want a bunch of people just flooding in there and being all crazy. How do you select your research locations? Like, is it based off like the BFRO and their reports, or local Wisconsin reports, or just like you just kind of have a feeling like, it's probably a good spot? Like, how do you select that?
So for the majority of the stuff that we've done in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, in Mountain, Wisconsin, and those areas that we've documented and stuff on our YouTube channel, and that we've gotten reports come in and we focused it on certain locations of there. There are a couple new locations that we're working based on stuff that we've narrowed it down to say this area is close between myself and another researcher, and we can both get there pretty easily. It has water, it has food, it has everything that the other locations where these creatures are has. So there's no reason why these creatures shouldn't be there. So we started looking into locations like that as well, and following up with other sighting reports and stuff in the areas. But for the most part, everywhere is kind of just been like reports and stuff that we've gotten for the most part.
Do you ever dig deep into the woo type stuff? Like if you hear like there's portals opening up, like Jeremy and I, I'm not going to disclose the name, but we have a contact here where he claims that there's a portal that opens up and aliens come out, and also big feet are present and stuff like that, and we've wanted to camp out there, which sounds dope, honestly. But do you follow leads like that, or is it more in the natural of, you know, we saw this thing drinking, or we saw this thing eating and things like that, versus we saw a portal open up and the Bigfoot came out? Like, how do you judge through your through the I don't know, sightings or whatever, which spot is a good spot to go to versus what isn't, you know?
Yeah, so we're Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We have over 10 people on our team that are actively out there working with us in that. And each person on the team specializes in our own area of research.
Sure.
And what that does is allows us to take those reports like you're talking about and go, okay, well, I don't know anything about portals. Well, they do. So they say, okay, well, here's the lore on this, or so on and so forth. And the interesting thing to look at is when you take fairy lore, you take UFO lore, you take Bigfoot lore, and you strip away the names and, you know, the stuff like that, the colloquialisms, and you just look at what's being discussed, you find all these similarities. And when you look at that, it leads you to all these other openings of saying, well, you know, this, you know, the kidnapping thing of fairy lore, you know, that goes with aliens, it goes with Bigfoot. You start to see all these patterns and stuff emerge. So when you go out to these areas, you have all this stuff reported in these different areas. But the thing is just because you're out there looking for Bigfoot doesn't mean everything's a Bigfoot. So if I had a guest on my show, and I wish I could remember who said this because I quoted a lot. He said that a UFO comes down from the sky over the forest and a Bigfoot runs out of the forest towards you. Did the Bigfoot get out of the UFO? No, he doesn't want to be abducted. He's running from the same UFO that you just saw.
Sure.
Right. So just because you have these two phenomenon in the exact same location, if you're out in the woods and you see a glowing ball of light, yeah, it could be Bigfoot related. It absolutely could. Or it could be a completely different phenomenon. How many deer hunters have you heard of going out in the woods and seeing a Bigfoot? Are they out there to hunt Bigfoot? No, they're out there to hunt deer or bear or rabbit or squirrel or whatever they're out there hunting. And all of a sudden now you're out there and you see something else. That's the same way on a more mundane level. You cannot associate a portal with a Bigfoot just because there's a portal there.
Sure. Yeah, I like the way you think, man. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
What we have done, like I said, Burlington Woods, the reason why we started off there is because literally everything is being reported there. There's portals, there's a shamanic burial site there, it's a serpent mound, it has fairy activity, we've had Bigfoot activity, we've seen UFOs over this forest. Why is it all there? I don't know. And that's exactly why we spent so much time down there researching this. And I mean, we're not any closer to answers than we were when we started, but we've been able to document a lot of this stuff and go, okay, it actually is here. We've had go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and that's an important step.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, documentation, because without that, it's just hearsay, which is, you know, anybody and their mother could make some BS up. It's when it's actually documented that it actually shows anything, right? Well, obviously. But yeah.
And that's science. And we were able to bring that science. I'm very science, very show me. When we put out our documentaries and stuff on our YouTube channel and our evidence and that, I go over this stuff. And if there's any chance that it's, you know, like something mundane, I'll just throw it out because I'm not there. And I'm not here to tell you that the evidence that I captured was of a Bigfoot. Unless I legitimately have a video of a Bigfoot right there that you can see it, I don't know what
Mhm.
these footprints are. I don't know what caused that branch crack. I don't know what made this audio.
Right. But
This
it's not
is
deer.
what happened.
Right. Yeah.
Right. This is, we
Yeah.
were out there, we documented it. This is what happened. You make up your mind. Do I think that that's what it is? Yes. You know, because of this. But that's my opinion because I was there. You weren't there. The other person wasn't there. Nobody else can tell
True.
me what I saw, what we experienced, what all else happened that day that led up to those thoughts or feelings or whatever that we're implying to this. Now, again, with that, we've gone out and we've done documentation and experiments in this area to say, okay, well, the Burlington Woods, again, for an example, is got this massive high energy power line that runs over the top of it. So with high EMF, you have the opportunity to hallucinate, to see things, to get this feeling of being watched and all of these things. So one of the experiments that we did was we thought, okay, well, a lot of these people are reporting stuff towards night, towards dusk or at night. Well, what happens when, you know, the sun goes down? Everyone starts coming home, they turn on their lights, they turn on their TVs, and they're sucking more power. So that means that these power lines should be carrying more power back and forth. So we actually went through the woods 3 times and we took different levels of EMF through the entire forest underneath the power lines, different areas and stuff. And we documented the times, the locations, and the EMF levels of each of these locations to see if that caused the difference. And throughout the entire day, night, afternoon, the 3 times that we did it, all these levels were the exact same. So whatever's causing this is not a fluctuation in energy. So stuff like that is the kind
it
of
is a base level.
Yeah, it's just
That's pretty
what
cool.
it is.
Jeremy, have you told him your Bigfoot experience?
I don't remember if we talked about it or not, or if we stopped at just Homewood. I'm not sure.
I want to branch off into other things because we're not exclusively a Bigfoot podcast, right? Before we derail, you know, if you want to share it with him.
I have heard it on my show. I don't, if you want to briefly remind me or whatever, but I remember we have talked about it. So
no, we're good. The listeners have heard that a dozen times already, man. We're good.
So we're not exclusively a Bigfoot or cryptozoology in general podcast. We try to cover everything, right? We used to have a guy on the show that was really big into the occult, and so he was the guy that would, you know, brief us on things like that and topics like that. We got Jeff here, who's really big into conspiracies. Jeremy's more of like the all around science sort of guy. I'm the look through everything through the lens of the Bible sort of guy. But we try to cover a bunch of topics. But you were talking about there, seeing UFOs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you give us some cool examples of good UFO sightings that you and your team has seen?
So one of the members on our team used to be on our team. We did a 2-part episode of UFOs in Wisconsin, and we basically went around. We talked to some witnesses and just kind of did some of that. But then we also did some CE5, which is trying to draw them in.
Sure.
So that's kind of where the episode went. Now, I'm not big into the UFOs because I feel like, you know, with Bigfoot, if somebody sees a Bigfoot, going back to the flesh and blood thought, that that thing is probably within the woods within 20 miles of it, right? So if you see it yesterday, it's probably still pretty close. If you see a UFO yesterday, it's gone. Like, the chances of it coming back or parking in your backyard again or hovering over your house, it's just not going to be there. So aside from putting a pin on a map, what can I do about this? So we looked at it from the other aspect of trying to go out and do the CE5 and draw one in. So that's kind of where we went with our episode of this. And to that effect, we set up a CE5 in Neenah, Wisconsin, and we allowed the whole public to come and do it. And we set up flight tracker, we set up star charts, we set up satellite charts and all this stuff. So we had all these on the table. So anything that was spotted in the sky, we'd know exactly what it was. And we actually did have one anomaly that night that we weren't able to pinpoint to anything else. I mean, it's a random light in the sky that flew over us and we have no idea what it was. But that's not too exciting, but it happened. I mean, that's science. That's what you're looking for. You want a sighting of something anomalous, and that's what it was. Now, more weird, one of my members of the team actually saw a full saucer over the city of Neenah, which is why we use that as a kind of jumping board to use Neenah as our thing. Myself and my mom were driving from Lower Michigan to Upper Michigan, crossing the bridge there by St. Ignace, and we saw a weird silver object in the sky that just...
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
It's time to rewrite the vacation rules. With Royal Caribbean, your family can look forward to just about anything. Break the thrill barrier, roaring down the tallest water slide in North America. Jump into breathtaking jungles and jaw-dropping coves. Vibe off the charts on our private island Perfect Day at Coco Cay. And end the day knowing things are just getting started. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Disappeared. And probably the biggest thing that I've saw is I actually saw what looked like a circular edge of a disc lit up with lights in Appleton. I was driving to work one day at night, and this thing was hovering right over like an apartment building. I didn't see the craft itself, but there was just this string of lights, and it was like 100 to 200 feet above ground. So it wasn't a plane, it wasn't power lines, it wasn't anything there, because it isn't there anymore, obviously. I've looked for it every time that I drive by, it's not there. And I went down to the next exit, and I turned around to come back, and it was gone. So I still have no idea what the heck that thing was. But that was probably my most clear UFO sighting, was that one.
That's awesome. Barnaby, my wife in the chat, Womans, told me to send you, so I sent you through your Facebook. I hope that's actually you. The video I took,
yep.
When it was probably 2014. I was at Naval Air Station Oceana, Virginia, and it's a jet squadron or jet base, right? So it's all F-18s and no helicopters, and we had a UFO sighting. It was me and a bunch of buddies out in the smoke pit. So it was basically like a pergola out in the middle of the grass, right? Where we were grilling out and everything, and me and about 30 people saw this thing coming down, and I was the only one that pulled up my phone to record it. So, check it out. There's plenty of things. I think it could have been skydivers and stuff. But the problem is that because we were a jet squadron and we had night ops going on, the likelihood of having a helicopter flying over and dumping out spec ops to do skydiving missions is very slim, because they could get smacked by a jet. So versus when I was in Norfolk, Virginia, which was a helicopter mostly squadron, and it was very rare to get an F-18 where we'd have night ops like that all the time. So check it out, But Whitney wanted me to share that with you, just to have a look see. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's good.
Yeah, no, dude, that's dope. Your experiences with UFOs or UAPs, it's just, gosh, I think I really hope that I'm not super big into this administration or that administration. I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? But I really hope we get some dang good answers as far as this administration goes in the United States to see what these things are, what is all going on. Being prior military, I did 13 years in the Navy. I understand, having to keep secrets, right? We don't want our enemies to know what we're working on, right? If we have a craft that can break Mach 10 and do a 90-degree turn at 1,000 miles an hour, we don't want that technology falling into our enemy's hands, and I feel that. But at the same time, I feel like we need at least some kind of an explanation on all the crap that's been going on, and I really hope that it's tough for me. My mom was in the Navy and she did top secret stuff. She doesn't even have fingerprints anymore, which is interesting. But she did top secret stuff in Southern California, and she said, like the F-35. I was like, all right, cool. Vertical takeoff, jet, right? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. She's like, that's probably been in production for 40 years because they needed to know if we make a 90-degree turn at 600 miles an hour, is it going to rupture the airframe and cause the pilot to get ejected out into space, all this sort of stuff, right? They need to know these sorts of things. So it's probably been in production for a very, very long time. And that's what we might be seeing with some of these UAPs or UFOs and things like that, these drones that can do things that we know for a fact there's no way the human body can sustain that sort of level of G's. You get turned into scrambled eggs or hamburger meat. But, for drone technology, we know it's way more advanced than probably the, 4 propeller helicopters are flying around, right? Type stuff. But where did that start? And hopefully we'll get some sort of answers as far as some of the UFO sightings we've seen, whether it's the TR-3B, it's a triangle shaped UAP that has lights all around it and 3 lights at the bottom, right? Type stuff. Is that from out of this world? Is that from another country? Is that from our own military technology? What is that? So hopefully we'll be getting some of that. But yeah, that's dope. I recorded for these guys. I did post it on the group for Infinite Rabbit Hole, but it was a drone that was flying over us. Me and my wife were driving home from work. We got like an hour drive to and from work. And I was like, it's not a helicopter because there's no light at the bottom. I'm not searching for anybody. The crash lights are weird, and it's just staying there. And so we get closer and closer, closer. Finally, she tells me to pull over because I'm like looking at it. She's like, "You're gonna get us in a head-on collision." So I pull over and I film it, and it's weird, dude. It's like a diamond or whatever, but it's on both sids. It's not
throwing up gang signs.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Shit, dude. But yeah, no, it was weird. And I've seen a UFO over a mountain. It was just silver and it was just sitting there. And I told Jeremy when I was driving past it, I was like, I think I'm seeing a UFO. And it was right next to a military base. It was right next to Southern California. We had a rail cannon, right? Type stuff. We had some crazy stuff there on my last base. But hopefully we'll get some answers. I don't know. I don't believe in UFOs the way that other people see UFOs. I don't think they're from out of the earth, right? I don't know why you would be able to travel millions of light years and still need landing lights.
So here's the thing, man, right? The external lights, I think that we're looking at that. We're putting a human filter on that, right? We're applying a human meaning to it when it could mean multiple different things. We're applying what we as humans would look at that and say that's landing lights, but it could mean whatever it means to
it could be anything else. It could be a type of camouflage.
It could be. Yeah. It could be, right? It could be anything. But recently, right? And I'm probably going to catch some flack from this, but I'm halfway through Lou Elizondo's book, right? Imminent. And I have heard so many negative things about this guy's book, but let me tell you one thing. This guy's book is so packed full of the most densest content that I think I've ever read. Like, I've been reading this thing for over a month now, and I blow through books. I blow through them super fast. I just got done with a section that directly relates to what you're talking about right now, and it's called The Observables. And he specifically talks about these 5 observable facts that you can make by looking at UAP, and specifically from the point of view of pilots or people who are knowledgeable from the point of view of engineers or people who are extremely knowledgeable about flight mechanics. 1, okay, these things move extremely fast, right? We know this. They move up to 13,000 miles per hour, which is 17 Mach, not just 10, right? They have gone up to 17 Mach. They've been clocked multiple times at going up to 17 Mach and slightly beyond. Not only do they go 17 Mach, but they are also multi-domain, meaning that they go from space to the atmosphere of Earth to water, back out, back into space, back into the atmosphere of Earth, back into the water, never even decelerating or even making a splash in the water whatsoever. Like, they don't disrupt the water when they enter the water at 13,000 miles per hour. They don't make a splash. They don't stop. They don't decelerate. They stop all of a sudden, and then they accelerate right to 13,000 miles per hour immediately. That's unheard of. That's incredible. There's no human technology that can come anywhere near that. Even if it's a drone, the materials that we have access to can't do that. It's as if gravity doesn't affect these things. When we break the sound barrier, which is at 1 G's, one G force, which is 1 Mach, right? 1 Mach is the sound barrier for us, and that is at sea level, at standard weather or normal weather,
so like
normal
600
pressure,
miles an hour,
600 something miles per hour, right? When that happens, the vibrations of the aircraft create vibrations in the air molecules around it, which create the cone, the sound, and it looks like a bow wave coming off of the stern of a ship, right? And basically what happens is these air molecules, because the craft is moving faster than the speed of sound, these sound waves can't move away from the object fast enough, so they pile up on top of each other and literally force upon each other to create a bulk, which takes the form of a wave. And they create that V, that famous V, just like the bow wave of, like a ship in water. And when that bow wave passes an object that can observe it, like we can with our ears, it creates a boom, which we interpret or we call a sonic boom. That does not happen with UAP. They do not create a sonic boom when they pass 1 Mach. They do not create a sonic boom when they pass 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 17 Mach. They do not create a sonic boom, no matter what. So they do not do that. They do not create heat inhalation. They do not cause ionization. They do not create static charge. They do not create any of that. Nothing. Like when we watch it with infrared or we watch it with sonar, radar, whatever, they do not pick up any signatures whatsoever from these craft. There's nothing there that tells you that this thing is even an object, other than that it looks solid. There's no exhaust. There's no nothing. There is literally no signature to these objects whatsoever. I mean, these things are cold.
Then could it be a hologram?
It could be. It very well could be.
Because
but then you go, but hold on. But then you go back to the like we talked about before, like the Bob Lazar whistleblow from 1989, right? When you talk about element 151 or 115 or whatever it was, right? when you said that they used this specific element to help displace gravity around the UFO, and that they were reverse engineering, and that they discovered that this element 115 was used to displace gravitational forces around the craft itself, creating a self vacuum bubble, sort of similar like a
The Thing.
Yeah, sort of like a bubble of outer space, literally surrounding the craft, so that there is no resistance whatsoever as this thing is floating through space, or as it is going through our atmosphere, as it is going through the water, as it is entering the water. So it is removing all matter as it is moving simultaneously through. That's the only technology that could even make this happen. We don't have access to that, and we're far away from that shit, unless Bob Lazar was correct. And then you have the what's his name? The guy who blew up the Tesla truck in Las Vegas, who sent the email to Sam Shoemake, who ended up going on to Homeboys podcast.
Yeah, Sean Ryan.
Yeah, and he was talking about anti-gravitical technologies. And then you had the I think it was Sam Barber, right? Was that his name? Jake Barber, that went on to Newsweek, and he was talking about his the crash retrieval, and he was also talking about anti-gravitical technologies and stuff. I mean, we're starting to see a theme here: anti-gravity, something about gravitational replacement technologies. Luis Elizondo is talking about it. Everyone's talking about this. That's the only way that you can make this happen.
So I guess my question to you then, is it impossible for us to have this technology, or are we not privy to this sort of technology?
I think that it's a good chance we have it. I think it's a good chance that we have it, and then we're working to reverse engineer it. But I think that if we had it, we would have already used it against our adversaries. Because I think that if we have this, that there's no way that we don't use it, because it's almost an instant checkmate. Because we can literally deliver a payload to anywhere in this world almost instantaneously, without any payback. I mean, we could literally deliver a payload anywhere without any repercussions, because nobody would be able to know that we did it.
I think that maybe we do, but the limiting factor is morality.
You're saying that the U.S. government has morality?
No, I'm not saying the government has morality. I'm saying the individuals have morality. Yes, we could nuke Russia into a parking lot, but maybe the person has morality into saying that, well, it's literally Putin that's the problem, not all of Russia. So I think it might, because I mean, look,
it's also a Cold War, because if you're saying that we have this technology, any other government that's done UAP research has also got that same technology and has been able to back engineer it just as well as we have. Yeah. We've all gotten it about the same time. We've all been in the game the same time. How do you know? It's going back to, what you said about hiding the intelligence. You don't want your adversaries to know what you have. And we all have that finger hovering above the button. And until you drop that, whatever, and say, okay, we have this technology, now all of a sudden every other country around the world that has been studying this and has the same technology, we're afraid of what's going to happen when that happens.
Yeah.
Then you have what's that term that they used in
nuclear assured destruction?
Assured destruction. Exactly.
Yeah. So basically the idea is that if a foreign entity attacks us, we will launch everything that we have at them to ensure their total annihilation, because most of our ICBMs or our SIBMs, right, sub intercontinental ballistic missiles, they're tracked and they're able to find where they're at. Not maybe the subs, but the ICBMs, because they're all over the Midwest. So if we get attacked, say, by Russia in a nuclear force, we are going to attack them with everything that we have, because it's better to do that than to do a couple nukes and allow the rest of them to be destroyed by incoming fire. So it's a mutually assured destruction clause that the president has in the football.
I don't know,
so
man.
if we get attacked, right? So
I don't know. Have you ever heard of Have you ever heard of a great filter?
No.
So there's a theoretical filter that's applied to civilizations throughout the galaxy, right? Where it's basically like a kill switch, right? Where when a civilization hits this filter, basically it's a technological thing. Whenever they hit the filter, they're done, right? When you give them too much power, you give them a certain technology, they end up killing themselves. Nuclear power was supposed to be one of those filters. Anti-gravitical power could be technically one of those filters. AI, self-sustaining AI is supposed to be one of those filters, right? I mean, what was that movie? Terminator is a movie literally based around one of those filters, when AI literally becomes self-sustainable and no longer needs human beings and just kills off all the biologics and becomes self-sustainable, just gets rid of us. That's a great filter. That could be an answer to this. These things that we see could be the remnants of a great filter. These could be AI from a civilization that is no longer around.
See, I find no evidence for that at all, man. There's no evidence for. I would love for that to be the case. Just the idea that there has been other civilizations, or is, right. I'm the space is fake guy, but at the same time, like, I would love for there to be some Star Wars shit happening, right? I'm there for it. But
Right.
I think what everybody always forgets is, like, we talk about like this shit, like this new Cold War, right? Like, we have this technology, they must have the technology, or whatever the case might be. We got to remember, man, like, this whole like nation state, like war, like all this type of stuff, this geopolitical theater is just that. It's just theater, right? And you basically know this because, like, we all get along in Antarctica and we all get along on the space station. Everything's cool on the space station in Antarctica, yet everywhere else it's World War III. World War III is always about to fucking start, right? And there's these mutually assured destruction, technologies that we're just pointing at each other all the fucking time. I don't buy it for a second, dude. I think that there's another layer above the theater, right? Call it the shadow government, call it the Illuminati, call it whatever you want to call it. But there has to be another layer above the thing that we all see. And that layer probably has access to these technologies. And also, two things can be true at the same time. There's almost, in my opinion, there's almost definitely this shadow government with UAP technology. And they've utilized this UAP technology for blackmail purposes, for, threatening world leaders to keep them in check in theater, right? To keep the play moving. So if you don't play along, we show up and we do some spooky MyLab shit, military abduction shit, weird stuff like that. But also at the same time, I think some of the phenomenon that we've always seen forever, all of human history, it's the gods, man. Like, again, call it what you want. Interdimensionals, demonic entities, the gods, right? Like this, there's some other thing that's happening that's probably tied to the spirit world or some interdimensional realm that we can't really feel. This is why these objects can go into the water with no splash and not create sonic booms and so on and so forth, because they're not physically in this space. We're just catching glimpses of them somehow, right? So I think both of those things are true. There are technologies that higher up than the theater has, and then I think there's also like a spiritual level to it as well.
All right, Jeff and Jeremy, shut up. I want to hear from Barnaby. He's our guest. So
That was literally the first time Jeff talked the entire show, and you
I
shut him
know,
up.
right? It's the only thing he knows how to talk about, but he's going to shut up now. No, if you want to respond to him, go ahead.
I don't know. I'm just listening. I mean, like, I said my piece. I think that, I think they all have the power to that. I think that, you talked about the transmedium travel. Jake Barber talks about that as well. You look at that on Skinwalker Ranch. You listen to Jake Barber's testimony. You look at the stuff that they're getting on Skinwalker Ranch, where they're supposedly watching this thing go into the mesa and come out of the mesa. Well, in Jake Barber's full interview with Newsweek, he talks about this same phenomenon. And I think that's very interesting. I do a whole presentation on the science of the paranormal. And in that presentation, I talk about the electromagnetic spectrum, all the way from the radio waves up through visual light and then the radioactive stuff. And what you find with these particles, when you get up into the radioactive spectrum and the higher frequencies in that, is these particles are able to pass through things. So again, all this stuff is going on around us that we're not able to see. It's not in our visual spectrum. And what's happening is these objects, these UFOs, these whatever, when they're coming down in frequency to our level, this is when we're able to see them and interact with them. And this is also why you get these radioactive side effects from it. People that have seen, like, in the Skinwalkers of the Pentagon book, they talk about a lot of people that have been to Skinwalker Ranch and taken things home with them, the hitchhiker effect, and have seen these orbs or balls of light. And I love that book. That one, and Lou Elizondo's that you said earlier, and then Hunt for the Skinwalker as well. Those are three required reading if you're into any of this stuff. But they talk about the hitchhiker effect. There you go. And this radioactive side effect to it. Well, if they're getting this radioactive side effect, that explains a lot of these transmedium things that you're experiencing, because, look at your X-rays. When you get up to the higher levels of your frequencies, you have the visual light spectrum, and then the infrared light, the ultraviolet light, and then you have the X-rays. Well, X-rays are what we use to literally X-ray our bodies. And then you have the gamma rays and the other radioactive rays that allow you to penetrate.
Turns you the Hulk,
everything, from walls and stuff like that. This also explains how, you hear people talking about these interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings coming through walls into their bedrooms at night and stuff, or being able to levitate these people through walls and take them places. Because if they're able to raise that vibrational frequency, you're able to pass through different substrates, different levels, different molecules and stuff with that higher frequency. So when you look at this at a scientific level, this all starts to make sense that, it doesn't have to be extraterrestrials. It doesn't have to be interdimensional, whatever. It puts it into the frame of reference that we already have.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV, it's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Yeah, there's just to take a step back. Sorry.
No, we're going forward.
The three books that you mentioned, they go together so well. If anybody really wants a full snapshot of the entire OSAP journey, the trio of books that is Hunt for the Skinwalker, Skinwalker at the Pentagon, and Imminent are those 3 books right there are just your full spectrum story of what OSAP is, how BASS joined them, how they started off as NIDS, became BASS, how OSAP turned into INSIPs, or I'm sorry, how they turned into ATIP, or they birthed ATIP as part of OSAP, and then ATIP became its own self, basically run body after OSAP took a nosedive, and Lou Elizondo became the head of that, and it's such a, I think it's undervalued what OSAP did, and they're catching a lot of heat right now because of all the stuff that's coming forward. I think a lot of people are having trouble believing all the stuff that's being put out right now because it's coming from a government entity, and I understand that, right? I understand that, a lot of people are pushing back, especially, like people from, like, let's just say Jeff's circle of friends, right? They're not the most friendliest when it comes to government entities, right? Especially when they're releasing this kind of information. They're always like, man, this smells like shit. This looks like shit, smells like shit, must be shit, right? Why are they giving us all this information? This information is too good. There must be some crap behind it.
Everything's a fucking psyop.
And see, right? So, and I'll admit, like, there's some, especially in Imminent, and this Skinwalkers at the Pentagon book, there's some really juicy shit in there. There's some really, really, really good shit in there. And like some stuff in there that I'm reading, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that people are allowed to publish this. That's pretty intense. And I can understand where people are coming from, but if you're looking at it and you're looking at the science that's behind it, and you're checking the science, and you're really diving into it, a lot of this is really well thought out, and a lot of it makes a lot of really good sense. It really does. There's a lot of dots being connected, and a lot of lines drawn, and I think that especially the Skinwalkers at the Pentagon and Imminent, I think that there's a lot of things in there that I think a lot of people should read, even if it is government planted information. I think that there's a lot of really good information in there that people really need to take away from this, because even if it is just planted information, there's still really good high quality stuff in there. I don't want to give it all away because I'm really big on letting authors tell their stories. So I'm trying to tiptoe around most of it. But like what you were saying, there's a sorry, I'm trying to think of whether or not I want to go down that whole rabbit hole because we're already an hour and a half into this show.
Well, let's derail it then.
Yeah, no, it's probably a better idea.
How about this? We'll get him on later on, and we'll talk about all the other stuff. I really want to get into the rest of his research. How about the paranormal? You talked about it a little bit as far as the different wavelengths and being able to go through walls and things like that, and move objects or not move objects. But what sort of experiences have you had on a team or by yourself dealing with the paranormal?
In my experiences, I've seen full-bodied apparitions. I've seen shadow entities. I've recorded EVPs. I have experienced objects move. I have had a 6-foot fake tree thrown at me. Even before I started CAPS, that was my first paranormal experience. I've shared it on several shows and stuff, but I mean, you name it. I've had the gambit of stuff happen. I guess I'm a firm believer that there's stuff out there in the paranormal realm of, you know, ghosts or spirits and stuff like that. I am very fortunate to have two amazing mediums on my team, as well as a few others that are on call with us, and they are absolutely phenomenal with what they do. I 100% believe in them because they have been able to get information that they shouldn't know that they did. You know, like there's no way that they would have known that information if they weren't literally talking to the spirit of somebody that has passed. So they're amazing, phenomenal people, and by using them in the field, it adds so much to the stuff that we investigate.
So what do you think as far as the entities that you encounter? Are they, in your mind, say like the layman's terms, are they ghosts, spirits, angelic beings, demons, leftovers, energies, things like that? Like, what do you think that they are?
There's a little bit of everything, actually. We've encountered the spirits of people that have passed, people that are stuck at a specific location for a reason. We had one location where we work where there was 3 children ghosts that were literally being held there by a dark entity, and the dark entity was not a human. It was literally feeding off the suffering and the energy and stuff of these other ghosts, and we were able to hold the children in a safe space and allow them to cross over while holding this other thing at bay. We had several encounters with this thing where every time we'd have a conversation with another being of the building, this thing would come in and they would take over. He's coming, he's here, all this stuff. And we'd be having these wonderful conversations of, like, how are you today? Oh, I'm good. Everything's great. It's, it's a party. We're having fun, all this stuff. And then leave, get out, all that. And the whole energy, all the equipment changes, everything. And so there's definitely things out there that are what we call like energy vampires. They just come in and feed off of the energy of a location or the other spirits there or whatnot. I would say there's only been 1 or 2 cases in my whole time as a researcher where we've encountered a demonic entity. And the one case was really bad. It was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We got called in, and it is our episode called Documenting Fear. And this family called us in. They had literally blocked off the upstairs of their house. They taped off all their vents in the house. They covered up all the mirrors, and they said all this stuff is happening. We're hearing voices. We're capturing stuff on pictures. They'll take a picture of something, and this entity will show up in the picture that they didn't see in person. All this stuff is happening. They said, we're leaving. We're moving out at the end of the month, and we want you to come in and document what you can, because we want to know if we're going crazy or if this stuff is actually happening. And so we came in and we set up our equipment. We spent the night there and everything, did all this stuff. And we got a little bit of evidence, and we went back and started reviewing it. And we got full conversations of these entities on audio. And
talking to each other?
Yeah.
Or talking to you?
Talking to each other.
Oh, wow.
We had an audio recorder upstairs that says, hurt him. No. Hurt him now. And then it growls, and then it says, okay. And there was nobody upstairs. It was just this audio up there. Other voices.
You said that was in Kenosha?
Kenosha, Wisconsin, yeah.
That's where I joined the Navy out of. That's crazy.
Yeah, this family, I mean, they're still having problems and stuff, and we've tried to get them help and reach out and stuff. But the problem with this stuff is if the people aren't willing to help themselves, there's nothing you can do. People talk about saging a house or, creating a safe space and all that stuff. That helps. That works. But you have to maintain it. You have to keep yourself safe and push this stuff out and learn how to control your abilities.
And remove everything that this thing could be attached to.
Right.
Right. So if there's a Ouija board somewhere upstairs in the attic, get rid of it. Yeah.
Properly.
You gotta, proper. So
Yeah.
It's funny because my mom, so my grandfather was in the Air Force and he was stationed in England, and they were on base housing, and they were in this house where apparently, I don't know, it was some Dear John letter or whatever, but they got a divorce, and the wife decided she was going to kill herself and all of her children. So she drowned all of her children in the tub and then hung herself off of the banisters. Well, it's base housing, so they're not going to demolish a building off of some, pesky little, murder-suicide type stuff. So my mom, she recalls when she was very little, like 5, that they lived in this haunted house, and it would turn on the stovetop, which was gas powered, and move towels over there to set the fire alarm off and try to burn the house down and all this sort of stuff. And she recalls being pushed down the stairs, all this sort of stuff. My mom's a very Christian woman. She doesn't believe in ghosts. She doesn't believe in leftover spirits. She believes in demons, and maybe there's a demonic entity that was attached to that house, right? But all this sort of stuff. And so one day it was just like months and months and months of this. Grandpa comes home from work. He's active duty Air Force, and he shouts into the house from the entryway, "If you don't knock this stuff off, I'm going to burn this house to the ground." And then everything stopped for 2 years. They finished up the rest of the tour. Grandpa got back in the States. Everything was good. Fine for 2 years. So grandma and grandpa are now in their, late 70s, and they want to go on like a trip of all the places they've been, because they went lots of places. They went Germany, Italy, France, England, all these sorts of places. So they're doing their like 40th wedding anniversary. So they go to England on this trip, and they go to the base, and sure enough, the house is still there. And grandma's like, I just want to see. So she goes up, she rings the doorbell. Lady answers. She's like, "Is she still here?" And she's like, "Is who still here?" She's like, her. And she's like, "You know about her?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, she terrorized us 40 years ago, and stuff like that." Like it's crazy. So even still, like even, my Christian beliefs that, you're dead and you're dead, and, you're saved, you're not, and all that sort of stuff, it can't really dissolve, I guess, the experience or the fact that there are other things. Now, whether that's angelic or demonic or something else, some sort of energy, because, it could be true. Our souls are made out of energy, and that's why we can't be killed or destroyed, right? We go from one place to another place. It could be that, right? But it's so creepy, dude. It's so gross and creepy, especially when you go from, I don't know, I suppose people might have unfinished business. I always like to throw in the anecdote of what about the hipster ghost that was running into the street to grab his vape that he dropped and got hit by a bus, and now he's just haunting the street corner, right? Like, if there were ghosts that died in tragic events, and I like to say that 400,000 people die worldwide every single day, and it's not from dying in a bed surrounded by their family members. It's from getting hit by cars and getting murdered and getting mauled by wild animals and all sorts of terrible things. If there were ghosts and people were able to perceive them, it would be like bumping into sand on the beach. Like every single step you take, you'd be slamming into them because they're just there, right? Because there's been so many people, even from a creationist perspective of 10,000 years, there has been 85 billion people that have lived on this earth, right? So, and most of them from untimely death. So the ghost idea for me is so underwhelming, where it has to be someone that died in this horrible experience, like school shootings. Like, I don't like to bring them up, but they would be hot spots for terrible paranormal activity, right? But you don't really see that. But that's not to say that there isn't also something there, because there are people that are able to pick up on this. And even if they weren't previously warned of, hey, we're walking into a house where 3,000 patients died under the care of one sick ass doctor, right? Or whatever it was, like in Clovis, California. It was 300 or 400 patients died because there was 20 doctors covering over them in a elderly care unit, and they left. They just said, screw this, we're done. And they all starved to death, pissing themselves and crapping themselves until they died, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a haunted hotspot until it was removed. I think there's a Walmart there now, right? So it's just gone. But there are still examples of people that can feel these sorts of things, and that's why I like you weren't here, but last episode, I think Jeff said, or Jeremy, we should pull someone out of an indigenous tribe that has nothing to do with our culture and put them in a house that's supposed to be super duper haunted and see what they think, even if they have, shaman sort of religions and things like that, where they, believe in the spirits. Maybe they'll be like, oh, dang, a house I have to build? Cool. And they'll be fine, right? Versus us, we're like, oh, it's spooky in here. I don't know. But I do believe there's something there. I'm not going to discredit it entirely and say that it's all baloney, because otherwise there would be no story, right? There wouldn't be a person walking into a situation where something bad happened and being like, oh gosh, there's something here. It'd be like, yeah, it's just a house. There has to be something there.
Well, you're talking about a lot of different things there, though. You're talking about residual energy. So somebody doesn't have to die to leave their energy in a location. So a lot of these traumatic like battles and stuff, anything where there's, if somebody lives in a house and loved the house and really cared about the house, you can still leave a part of yourself, a little bit of your soul there in that location and still be alive. There's been cases of that too, where somebody that used to live in a house is haunting that house, but is still alive and living in a different location. And they've documented this as far as like knowing the person and stuff that's happened there, like routines and stuff like that. You also have, you talked about like school shooters and stuff like that. A lot of those cases are, I don't want to say they're not bad or not traumatic, but they're not, they happen, they're done, they're gone. They got shot, they moved on. Children to a certain age have this innocence where they haven't latched on to this world. They haven't, solidified in here where they would have that unfinished business. Their soul can move on and just be done with it. Whereas you're talking about like the other cases where you have, the abuse, the neglect and stuff like that, where they've been tortured there. Again, that doesn't mean that a person's soul is trapped there, but a part of them is this reflection or an imprint of the stuff that was there, this energy that's left behind. It doesn't necessarily mean that the spirit of the person is there, but it means that they've left this image, this negative of what happened. And this is where you get like the residual cases instead of the intellectual, the intelligent hauntings. And a lot of the times the places that we go where we interact with these spirits, like we do a paranormal tour up here in Wisconsin, and this place is severely haunted, is the most active location that we've ever investigated. Yet when we have people come in for the tours, it's not the spirits of the building that necessarily interact with the people that come through, but the people's families and loved ones that have passed. Because when you open up this door and you say, hey, we're going to do this ghost tour, and this ghost investigation, and here's all this equipment, and we're opening up that door to have a communication with the other side, your mother, your grandmother, your best friend who passed is going to come through and say, hey, I want to talk to you. Just because you're here to talk to the spirits that are haunting this building, that doesn't mean that that's who's going to come through. And, I would say it's at least 50-50 the chance that when we do these tours, somebody's family member is what comes through and interacts with the people on the tours and investigations rather than the people that are actually in the building. And we know who's in the building. So we can tell you, okay, this is the spirit of this one that we've documented here. That's not who you're talking to. This is something else. Now let's figure out who it is. And then we start working through it, and it's like, oh, this is your dad, this is your grandma. And it's really interesting stuff that, it's not all the same thing.
So how would you differentiate between the energy or the ghost or the spirit of the person that's dead versus the person that's still alive? because that's something I've never heard before.
Mhm.
That people leave imprinting energy on a location. So how would you, as a researcher, be able to differentiate between those two?
That's where you go into the research side of it and finding out, well, who is it that we're actually talking to? And then you find out the
Sure.
history of the location, the house, and stuff like that. I don't remember all the exact details of that story. I remember it was a guest on one of my shows that came in and talked about that. And it was a guy that was their spirit or the energy was still in this house, and they literally knew from somebody like the neighbor or something. They're like, well, this is this guy, and this is what he did. He made his coffee every night at the same time because he went to work, and they knew his pattern, and they were able to say, oh, this guy's still alive, he just moved out. But that's how they knew, because they could pinpoint it down. Now for us, it'd be really hard, because you would have to do the research, find out who lived in the location, who has passed away in the location, and stuff like that. And a lot of times it's not even necessarily the people that died in the location. A lot of people think that, if you die at a certain house, that you're going to haunt that house. Well, that's usually not how it works. Like I said, it's usually when you have a house that's haunted, or you are having, if you move into a house and there's stuff happening from day one, it's probably the house, the land, the property, right? If all of a sudden something starts happening to you, like we get phone calls, we get emails and stuff of people asking for our help, private houses and stuff. And when we go into these locations, we don't go, tell me the whole history of the house. I can look that up online. What I say is, well, what's going on with you? What have you been experiencing? Have you lost a job recently? Have you, gone through a divorce? Have you been through some traumatic instance? And I'm not saying that you're making it up. What I'm saying is that somebody on the other side is watching over you, and they're telling you, hey, I'm here for you. You need to pay attention to what I'm saying. And this entity that's knocking, your grandma's picture off the wall is actually your grandma saying, hey, see this picture of me? I'm trying to get your attention. Everything's going to be all right. I'm watching over you, and when people start doing that, they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. I have been smelling my grandma's perfume lately, oh my gosh, I never put that together. And, people are always scared of what they don't understand. If you don't know why this demon is throwing your grandma's picture off the wall, that can scare the crap out of you. And now all of a sudden you put this together of, oh, maybe that is, just what this is going on. And that knowledge, that understanding helps people understand and gives them that doorway to communicate and say, whenever I smell this, whenever I hear this, I think of my grandma, and I feel better because, we were very close, and it's helping me get through these situations, and things start to calm down. Because you're understanding what's going on, you're understanding who's trying to get your attention, who's trying to make those connections with you.
It's funny you say that. I had a dream this week of one of my coworkers that I'm not incredibly fond of, and of all the people to confront me about what my behavior towards him, it was my grandpa, who's been dead for 10 years, but he was closer to me than my dad was. And he had these big old sausage fingers, these big old mechanic hands, and he would poke it into your sternum. And when he wanted to get your attention, he'd be like, jabbing it into your sternum. And he told me, he's like, you are being a terrible example of what a Christian is by mistreating your coworkers. Pay attention, stop being an asshole type stuff. Right. And I told one of my Christian coworkers, and he's like, sounds like a message. That's what it sounds like. I was like, right, out of everyone that could have been doing that, it was him. And that, I'm the guy that's never died before. Here I am, right? So I'm not to say what is or isn't possible on the other side. I'm not going to say that I know for beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is or isn't possible. But yeah, it's just like, I get it. That's pretty dope. Your
comment section's right too. Like, just because a spirit says that they're your loved one or something, they can definitely be lying, and that's where you run into these problems. Like, a lot of people, oh, I want to be a ghost hunter. I'm going to go to the cemetery. Well, this is a huge problem because what happens, if you're going looking for your grandma, you want to talk to your grandma's spirit. Well,
sure,
your loved ones are always with you. They're always around you. They're always protecting you and watching over you. And what happens is you go to the cemetery, and what's at the cemetery? A lot of loss, a lot of grieving, a lot of this negative energy. And what were we talking about earlier is these energy vampires that feed off that negativity. Well, so you go to the cemetery to visit your grandma's grave, and you say, oh, grandma, are you here with me? Oh, I miss you so much. I wish you'd come with me. Well, these negative things that are at the cemetery are like, yeah, I'll come home with you. And this is where you get these things, these attachments, these things that come with you and follow you because you've invited it in. You talk about like these religious things and stuff. A demon can't just attach itself to you. You can't be walking down the street and all of a sudden a demon decides to follow you home.
Like a leech in a river. Right. Yeah.
You can't have that. This doesn't happen. What happens is it'll wear you down and you start to think, oh man, I'm worthless. You start to have self-doubt. You get more and more negative thoughts. And eventually, this thing starts eating away at you and picking at you until you let it in. And that's when these things start causing problems and stuff like that. But you can absolutely just let it in. And that's where you have these problems going to cemeteries and these places, be very careful with what you ask for. You say, is anyone here that wants to communicate? Well, now you've thrown that door wide open to any range of angelic, demonic, spiritual, anything that's there is going to come forward and find you. And if you don't do what you need to protect yourself, that's where these things start, becoming attachments and following you and causing problems and stuff. And that's where, like we said, you can sage and it's going to kick it out for a day, maybe a week, but this thing is going to come right back because your vibrations, your energy, your life is at that low point where you have these problems, and that's where you need to work on yourself. So that's what we have to teach people when we go to these locations and stuff is how to manage that. We have a new program we launched this year called the Affiliate Program. And we actually have a whole list of affiliates on our page that we trust that do teaching of how to manage yourself, how to keep your presence clean, how to communicate with the other side properly, because a lot of these people have empathic or medium abilities, and that's why these other spirits are drawn to them to communicate with them. And so they're going from house to house to house, and they're like, well, every house that I lived in is haunted. Yeah, because they find you because you're a beacon of light that's calling out saying, hey, I can see you, hey, I can hear you, I can understand you. So obviously all these spirits are going to seek you out to try and communicate because they know you can hear them. And it's up to you as a person to shut that off and learn how to control that so that they can't bother you and you can't have those interactions.
Hear that? It's SpringFest savings calling your name. Only at Lowe's. Right now, get a free Select Ego 56-volt battery when you buy a Select Ego trimmer, blower, or mower. Plus, get your choice of any 2 bags of Miracle-Gro organic soil mix for only $16. Shop these can't-miss deals in-store or online today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Valid through 4/2. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Excludes Hawaii.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Do you all teach a way to end the conversation, say goodbye, and be done with it versus them sucking onto you like a dirty, filthy leech, and just carrying you around,
Absolutely, yeah. When we get done with investigations, most of our team do a somewhat of a ritual of saying, you know, I'm leaving now. You do not have my permission to follow me home. You must stay here. You cannot come home with me. If we have a bad encounter with something at a location, we'll also sage and clean, you know, do a full thing like that before we leave,
Sure.
or when we get home and stuff, or take care of ourselves that way as well. It's very, different members of our team have brought stuff home from different locations, and we've had to take care of it and deal with it. Like I said, that Kenosha thing, that house, almost every person that went to that house took something home with them and had to deal with it.
See, this is what I wanted to bring up when we were talking about the skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
Mhm.
I wanted to bring up the hitchhikers, and that's a absolutely incredible topic. But that's a very author specific topic, especially when you talk about Lou Elizondo and Colm Kelleher and Lukatsky and Knapp. So I didn't want to talk about it too much, because we probably would have spent just as much time talking about that as you guys just did talking about your paranormal investigations there. But we are coming up here on the 2-hour mark, Barnaby. So we'll have to hold off on the hitchhiker phenomenon for next time. I know I can talk about that for a good hour or so. Before we do go, do you want to go ahead and let everybody know where they can follow your material at, and where they can come and see your upcoming convention?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can find me at Wisconsin, the full state spelled out, and then CAPS, so wisconsincaps.com. You can also find us at Wisconsin Caps on Facebook and X, YouTube, and Blue Sky, and WI Caps on Instagram. You can get all of our links on our website to all of our podcasts and all of our upcoming events. We're going to be at a bunch of stuff over the year as well, library presentations and conventions and all kinds of stuff. You can find all about CapCon as well on our website. Just click on the CapCon picture there, or the button itself. You can also find links to our affiliate page that I was speaking about on there, and our YouTube, and all that stuff right on there.
Awesome. Hey, awesome job, man. You are a great guest.
Thank you so much.
I had a phenomenal time on your show, man. If you guys haven't had a chance, go check out the Paranormal Spectrum. I was a guest on his show sometime last year. We had a great conversation. I've listened to a couple episodes just to kind of check it out before I head over onto his show, just to kind of get a feel for things. And I was entertained. So by all means, check it out. And I think Skeeter said that he was going to head on down to the Caps convention this year. He was asking if I wanted him to reach out to you, and I was like, what's funny is that I was just talking to him today about coming on the show. It was literally after I had just reached out to you. It was quite funny. So he was asking if I wanted him to reach out to Chad Lewis. I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely, yeah, Chad Lewis. I mean,
Chad will be a speaker at the convention as well.
I've been
Chad
trying
Lewis,
to reach Chad.
Tracy Brown Jr., Miranda Young, Angela Zabel, and Squatch America, and my team.
Nice. I've been trying to reach Chad for 5 years now. So by all means, if we can get Chad on here, I'd be a happy camper. But anyways, Barnaby, one more time, thanks. Really, man, it's been a pleasure. We'll have to have you back on so we can finish the conversation. Give it a few months so we can get some more information going. We'll do a post-Caps debrief. We'll see how it all went for you.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Anybody have anything else to say before we go?
Bro, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you answering all my questions and letting me just kind of pick your brain. It's pretty dope. It's very rare that we get a researcher that's into so many different things versus just one thing, right? It's always just aliens, or it's cryptozoology, it's paranormal, it's the occult, it's whatever it is. But you just allow me to pick your brains, get a load of your experiences and stuff. I really appreciate it, and I really look forward to having you back on
Absolutely. Just let me know. Thank you.
For sure.
Jeffrey?
Hell yeah, brothers.
There it is.
Hell yeah, bro.
All right. Well, I had a bunch of stuff to show off to the fans today, but this one ran a little late. I was going to show you guys the cover for the book that I've been working on for damn near 6 months now. And I was going to show you the cover work for the new podcast, but it's a little.
Yep. Suck next time.
A little late. Maybe next weekend, everybody. But that means you just have something to look forward to. Until next time, travelers, this has been another episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. We'll see you right here next weekend, where we have another guest lined up for like the 5th or 6th or maybe 7th weekend in a row. I'm not sure. Like I said, I've lost track. So until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.